You sit down, open your laptop, and stare at the blank screen. Minutes pass. Your hands hover over the keyboard, but nothing comes out. You tell yourself to focus, but instead the pressure builds, the page stays empty, and frustration replaces clarity. Now contrast this with someone else who opens the same blank screen and instantly begins producing ideas, words, and strategies with no hesitation. It looks like talent, but it is not. The difference lies in a neurological switch that either locks you in paralysis or launches you into flow. Today you are going to install the white page protocol, a simple 60-second trigger that erases the fear of starting and transforms that intimidating blank space into a magnet that pulls ideas out of your brain. Because here is the truth, the blank page is not the problem. Your brain's noise is. The overthinking, the fear of imperfection, the expectation that the first thing you type has to be brilliant. Neuroscience shows that when your prefrontal cortex is overloaded with evaluation and judgment, your creative circuits shut down. You are stuck not because you lack ideas, but because you have too much noise running in the background. The white page protocol is designed to silence that noise on command. Think of your brain like a computer. When too many apps run in the background, the system lags. The blank page becomes a spinning wheel, waiting for something to process. The protocol is the hard reset that clears memory and frees up processing power. And just like a reset, it takes less than a minute. Here is how it works. Step 1 is called the trigger phrase. You must give your brain a clear command that signals the start of execution, not the start of evaluation. For example, you say to yourself out loud, "Generate, don't judge." This phrase flips your attention away from self-criticism and toward output. Neuroscience calls this state prefrontal offloading. When you create a verbal command, you shift activity from the default mode network, which produces self-doubt, to the task-positive network, which drives execution. Step 2 is called the motion lock. Research shows that physical motion anchors mental focus. As soon as you speak the trigger phrase, you pair it with a small, repeatable physical gesture. The simplest version is placing your hands firmly on the keyboard and typing one line of text, no matter how trivial. It could even be the sentence, "I am writing now." What matters is that you pair motion with the trigger. This signals your brain that execution has already begun, which bypasses the fear of starting. Step 3 is called the garbage flow. You deliberately write without expectation for 60 seconds. The science is clear. Once neural circuits of motion are activated, momentum builds automatically. You do not need to produce genius. You need to produce motion. The garbage flow is not wasted effort. It is priming. MRI studies of writers show that even meaningless typing activates the same brain regions required for high-level creative output. In other words, the brain does not distinguish between nonsense and brilliance in the first minute. It only cares that you have started. Step 4 is called the pivot. After 60 seconds of flow, you choose one idea or sentence you just produced and build forward from it. This is the moment where noise is gone, the page is no longer empty, and your brain is fully switched into creation mode. That is the protocol. Trigger phrase, motion lock, garbage flow, pivot. 4 steps that take less than 1 minute. Now let me break down why this works with precision, because the mechanism matters. The main enemy of creative output is the amygdala's stress signal when you face an undefined threat. A blank page is exactly that, undefined. Your brain interprets it as uncertainty, which creates a fight or flight response. That is why you feel resistance and avoidance. The white page protocol converts uncertainty into certainty. The trigger phrase gives a clear command, reducing ambiguity. The motion lock gives physical proof of progress, which quiets the amygdala. The garbage flow floods your brain with dopamine from micro-achievement, which builds momentum. And the pivot hands control back to your prefrontal cortex, allowing structured ideas to emerge. The difference between paralysis and productivity is not talent or intelligence. It is whether you know how to silence the noise and activate flow. Let me give you an example. Imagine a professional athlete preparing to compete. They do not walk onto the field and wait for motivation. They have a sequence, a warm-up, a ritual, a trigger that locks their body and mind into performance. You must treat the blank page with the same discipline. It is not about waiting for inspiration. It is about commanding your brain into readiness. Most people make 2 fatal mistakes with the blank page. First, they try to think their way into clarity before they write. That only fuels more noise. Second, they demand perfection on the first attempt. That triggers judgment instead of flow. The white page protocol eliminates both mistakes by forcing you to start before you are ready and by shifting your attention from judgment to motion. Let me make this even more tactical. The next time you face a blank screen, set a timer for 60 seconds. Speak your trigger phrase out loud. Generate, don't judge. Place your hands on the keyboard and type any line, even nonsense. Keep typing without stopping for the entire 60 seconds. At the end, look at what you wrote, choose one idea, and pivot into focused work. That is the system. And if you think this is too simple to work, remember this. The brain does not reward complexity, it rewards consistency. Your neurons fire based on repetition, not theory. The more often you install this protocol, the faster your brain learns that the blank page is not a threat, but an invitation. After a week of use, you will feel the difference. The hesitation will shrink. The white page will no longer trigger anxiety. Instead, it will act like a signal flare, reminding your brain of the ritual you have built. The white page protocol turns emptiness into ignition. This is not just for writers. It works for presentations, emails, strategy documents, any situation where you face the void of starting. The science of activation is universal. There is another layer to this that most people never see. The blank page is not just a surface, it is a mirror. When you stare at it, you are not seeing the page. You are seeing your own noise reflected back at you. That noise can take many forms. Sometimes it is the fear of judgment. Sometimes it is the fear of wasting time. Sometimes it is the illusion that you are not ready. But neuroscience proves the opposite. Readiness is created by action, not by waiting. The white page protocol is effective because it interrupts the loop of hesitation and replaces it with the loop of momentum. Here is the loop most people are trapped in. They see the blank page, they feel uncertainty, they hesitate. Hesitation increases uncertainty, and the cycle repeats until exhaustion or avoidance wins. The white page protocol installs a new loop. Blank page, trigger phrase, motion lock, garbage flow, pivot, and then momentum builds itself. Once installed, this loop becomes automatic. You will no longer debate with yourself. You will simply start. To reinforce this habit, I want you to apply what behavioral science calls anchoring. Choose a specific environment cue that always triggers the protocol. It could be the moment you open your laptop, the sound of the timer starting, or even placing a sticky note on your desk that says "Generate, don't judge." Each time you anchor the ritual, you strengthen the association. Within days, your brain will begin linking the blank page not with fear, but with ignition. Another tactical reinforcement is what I call the 60-second audit. At the end of each work session, you quickly review how you entered flow. You ask yourself one simple question: how fast did I move from blank to motion? Tracking this metric rewires your sense of progress. Most people track output in terms of words or slides created. You will track speed of initiation. Because initiation is the hardest part, mastery here multiplies your total output. There is also a chemical component you must understand. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of drive, does not come from finishing a massive task. It comes from small wins, especially when those wins are visible. The garbage flow creates those wins in real time. You see words appear on the page, no matter how imperfect, and your brain delivers dopamine. That chemical signal tells you to keep going. This is why the pivot is so powerful. It transforms random words into the first thread of clarity, and dopamine builds from there. You are literally hacking your brain's reward circuitry to work for you instead of against you. Let me show you how professionals leverage this. Screenwriters in Hollywood use warm-up pages. They write dialogue that will never be filmed, purely to unlock their flow. Top executives use voice memos where they speak their raw thoughts into their phone before refining them into strategy. Musicians play nonsense riffs before locking into performance. The pattern is the same. Garbage flow first, refinement second. That is not weakness. That is the code of professionals who understand the mechanics of ignition. You now have the same playbook. But here is the edge most people will miss. The white page protocol is not just about writing or creating. It is a universal tool for any high-stakes start. Need to prepare a presentation? Use the protocol. Need to draft a proposal? Use the protocol. Need to outline a plan? Use the protocol. Because the real skill is not in typing words. It is in commanding your brain to execute on demand. The person who can start faster wins, every single time. Let's talk about implementation at scale. You must run this protocol every single time you face resistance. Do not wait for big projects. Use it on emails, notes, brainstorming, anywhere that hesitation shows up. The repetition builds a neural groove, making the protocol automatic. After a few weeks, you will notice that the blank page no longer carries emotional weight. It becomes neutral, even inviting. That is the sign you have rewired the association. And this is where competitive advantage is created. Most people will keep losing hours to hesitation. They will rationalize it as needing to be inspired, needing more time, or needing to prepare. You will bypass all of that. You will have a neurological switch that others do not. And in performance, a 1-minute advantage at the start compounds into hours and days of advantage in the long run. Now let me leave you with one final mental model. Imagine your brain is a car sitting at a traffic light. Most people wait for the perfect moment to accelerate, and in doing so, they stall. The white page protocol is like keeping your foot lightly on the gas. When the light turns green, you launch instantly. No delay, no hesitation, no noise. That is how you will treat every blank page from now on. You no longer wait. You ignite. So here is your challenge. The next time you sit down to work, do not just stare at the empty space. Run the protocol, trigger phrase, motion lock, garbage flow, pivot, 60 seconds, no excuses. You will feel the shift in real time. That is your competitive edge. And if you want more protocols like this, systems that install mental codes for unstoppable performance, then subscribe to Success Code right now. Because this channel is your arsenal. Every video gives you another code, another protocol, another unfair advantage. You do not need motivation, you need execution. And this is where you get it.